According to the sexual grievance industry, including rape crisis centres and legal dominance feminism, rape is a vastly underreported crime. The hell it is. According to these same usual suspects, false rape allegations are extremely rare. The hell they are. According to them, women don't report because they are terrified they won't be believed. The hell they don't. And according to them, most rape victims freeze when attacked, like a deer in the headlights, something called tonic immobility. And the evidence for this is... Feminist airheads are fond of quoting statistics about unreported rape. Like the percentages they spout, these are often pulled out of a hat. For example, in her vacuous polemic The Equality Illusion, Kat Banyard, that's her with the impressive cleavage, claims at least 100,000 women are raped every year in the UK. This is absolute drivel. As can be seen from this official publication, the actual conviction rate for rape is much lower. Even if you were to double or quadruple the number of prosecutions, the total wouldn't be anything like the number this airhead claims. But there are compelling reasons to believe that many of these convictions are unwarranted. The prisons in the UK and worldwide are full of men who have been falsely convicted of rape. That though is a subject for another video, although you might like to check out my article, The Truth About the Rape Crisis Network, which gives cogent reasons for this belief. Here though I want to tackle the tonic immobility stroke afraid to report myth. One of the terms we hear constantly in connection with sexual offences, real and imagined, is vulnerable woman. Vulnerable women are afraid to fight back. Vulnerable women freeze like a deer in the headlights of a car. Yada yada yada. We're going to dispel that myth by looking at some real life cases. I'm not saying women never freeze, some do. People, men as well as women, can be overpowered by all manner of trauma or even big occasions. If you're called upon to make a speech and have never made one before, that can be intimidating. Ever heard of stage fright? Singing or performing even in front of a friendly audience can be unnerving. But what happens when women are attacked by predators, sexual or otherwise? Most women, the overwhelming majority, fight back, and afterwards they report at once. If a woman doesn't survive an attack, the guy will probably have murdered her anyway. Here's our first clip. This is a 12-year-old girl being attacked by a brave young lion in Derby. He was intent only on stealing her phone, which he did. The girl was shaken up and an arrest was made 2 days later, and he was charged the day after. Here's another 12-year-old girl being attacked, this time in New York. This dates from November 2016. Having cornered and robbed a small girl, this predator started taking off his jacket, and at this point the victim realised she was in real trouble. But let her tell you what happened next.
Surveillance video shows the child walking home and the suspect not far behind. CBS 2's Brian Coningbear with new information now from Coney Island.
I always go to buy stuff.
12-year-old Kaylee Quintero was just picking up cilantro for her mom and a cupcake for herself at this store on Stillwell Avenue in Coney Island Monday afternoon, when a teenager she didn't know, seen here on surveillance video, started following her.
He tells me, "Are you cold?" I didn't answer. In the middle of the street, he tells me, "Seriously, are you cold?" And then I just kept walking straight.
Kaylee stopped at this McDonald's, hoping the guy with a brightly colored backpack would leave her alone, but he didn't. And then the scary encounter suddenly turned violent when they passed this alleyway between two buildings.
He comes from the back and he gets me from the neck, puts me inside the hallway, and he throws me on the floor. And then he told me, "Give me everything you got." I gave him everything.
Kaylee says he took the groceries and $3, but when he started taking off his jacket, she was terrified what might happen next, so she kicked him as hard as she could, right in the groin.
After I kicked him, he punched me, and I gave him the $3 to leave me. So then I screamed.
She was screaming, no, no.
Maria del Aguilar lives nearby and tried to help, but it all happened so fast, both the suspect and Kaylee were gone by the time she got outside. Another couple passing by had already come to her rescue. The 7th grader, who was brave enough to fight off her attacker, now hopes police find him, and soon.
I wanted to go to jail because I don't want like him doing that to more people.
These were two reasonably intelligent girls, but even women who are not that smart are smart enough to know what to do. This is a short clip from a BBC documentary. The female voice belongs to a young woman, a Mongol. Sorry, I don't use euphemisms. She was living independently and obviously been brought up well by her mother, who appeared in the same documentary. Listen and learn.
Police, what's your emergency?
Yeah, I've got this bloke here. He's had to have sex with me. He's touching me. I don't want to do it anymore.
Who is he? How do you know him?
He's in my bed. Oh my God.
What's the postcode?
It's TW5.
Yep.
H.
That's not a postcode.
He's got his colic. He's in my bed. He's drunk.
That's fine. I need to send police over to help you, so can you give me the full postcode? Tango Whiskey 5.
7, 8, 8, 8, 9, 10. That's my postcode. I just want help. I'm really scared. That man is in my flat. He's going to push me.
What's your name?
Jolene.
Jolene? Okay, do you want to come in, Jolene?
No,
Okay. Hello there.
Hi there. I'm not able to give you the postcode. Can I have the postcode for the area, please?
Right, she is a bit disabled, as you probably were aware.
Right.
Bit of Down syndrome.
I see.
So,
Okay. We're going to try and get someone there as soon as we can. Okay, mate?
At the moment, it appears they've never met previously. There was a 2-minute walk to the home address, and then within a very short space of time, they're allegedly in bed having sexual intercourse, which I would suggest is quite unusual.
She talks about him following her. It is very unclear what she means by following. He wasn't that far away, was the word she uses, and that's all you get over and over again when you question her.
She is a lady who has Down's syndrome, and as such, communication with her is proven to be quite difficult. There is a possibility that she invited him into the flat, but likewise there's also a possibility that he followed her without her knowledge and got into the flat, or forced her into the flat, or even under false pretenses. We just simply don't know at this time.
This woman understood sex, but not enough to understand that she hadn't actually been raped. Nevertheless, the predator concerned, who had a track record for this sort of thing, was convicted and received a substantial sentence. Note too that this woman, who was clearly a victim, did not choose to hide behind anonymity. What is the moral of this? Simply that if a woman claims to have been raped but says she didn't report it, she's probably lying, like this woman.
As is common, it was by somebody who was known to me. He had offered to walk me home from a youth event, and in those days everybody walked everywhere. It was quite common to do that. Afterwards, I walked home alone. I was crying, I was cold and I was shivering, and I now realise, of course, that was the shock response. I didn't tell my mother, I didn't tell my father, I didn't tell my friends, and I didn't tell the police. I bottled it all up inside me. As an adult, of course I now know rape's not about sex at all. It's all about power and control, and it is a crime of violence. And I still pick up on where the myths of rape are perpetuated from a male perspective. Surely you could have fought him off. Did you scream loudly enough? And the idea that some men would suggest that a woman's giving subtle hints or is making it up is outrageous. Or is making it up is outrageous. Or is making it up is outrageous.
It is probably no coincidence that at the time she made this so-called disclosure, Michelle Thompson was under investigation for fraud. When a woman delays reporting a rape, there are 3 possibilities. Obviously, one is that she really was raped, but this is the least likely of the 3. The second is that she's simply making it up. With so-called historical allegations, there is also the possibility, indeed the likelihood, of the alleged victim suffering from false memory syndrome or confabulating. Listen to this dumb cow from the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre explaining this away.
The increase in calls actually was connected to the reports that have come out over the number of years, the Ryan, Murphy and Ployne report, and this year we had a further increase in people calling who were victims of childhood sexual abuse. And in fact, the therapy sessions that were delivered at the centre as well showed an increase in victims of childhood sexual abuse availing of the therapeutic services of the centre. The victims of childhood sexual abuse, when they hear these reports and hear the contents of these reports, their memories get triggered, and this enables them, thankfully, to call the 24-hour helpline. This is the beginning of the healing process.
And this young woman who attended the Rape Crisis Centre in Cleveland, Ohio, after she remembered being raped as a child. Such memories are not real. Probably she was triggered, to use a fashionable phrase, by some unrelated event.
When I was 3 or 4 years old, I was molested and raped by my best friend at the time's father, who lived across the street from us. And I completely forgot about what had happened until I was almost 16 years old. I remembered rather suddenly, and then when I was 18, my best friend brought me down here for treatment because we didn't know what else to do. I didn't want my family to know. I didn't want anyone to know at first. I was so scared of telling anyone, and it was just horrifying to realize that everything I thought I knew about myself wasn't really correct.
The third possibility, and the most likely, is that the complainant had consensual sex and rewrote the experience as rape out of guilt, shame, disgust, or for some other reason. Many women today are sluts, and not only young women. They drop their knickers for men they hardly know, or even for total strangers. They cry rape days, months, years later, when the evidence of a consensual encounter has disappeared. So there are only two competing narratives. Either way, she has nothing to lose. She can accuse a man anonymously and can claim criminal injuries compensation, even if he is not convicted. Although in the UK, false rape claims made purely for financial reasons are extremely rare. No one should be taken in by the lies of the sexual grievance industry. Genuine victims fight back, and they report promptly, which is why most genuine rapists are brought to book.